Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Extra Shift. I am Chris, here as always with Brendan. How are we going?
Good. Yeah, we have a cup winner, and oh god, thank fuck.
I'm so pleased I called the last podcast The Darkest Timeline, because
yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, like we knew we were either going to be recording today or Thursday, so I'm glad. We didn't. Like from the perspective of this was a pretty close series. Like I think a lot of people were kind of expecting that it would go to 7, but we correctly predicted 6 games. But look, we'll get to the cup final after the news and so forth. A little bit to get to. It is episode 235. We're still kind of in the goalie numbers in the 35s.
I was going to say, I mean, you can take this a number of different ways. Obviously, you've got Sergei Bobrovsky when he was in Philly. Or one of my favorites, it's only 1 year. However, the 1980 Edmonton Oilers and their goalie, Jim Corsi.
I mean, I think we're all forgetting, the superstar Edmonton Oilers goalie, Tristan Jarry.
I'm not forgetting him. I know that there are other people that would like to, but I am not forgetting him. Remember Thatcher Demko? He used to be a goalie. He used to play in the NHL, I believe. Whatever happened to him?
I think injuries.
Sells fruit juices on the side of a freeway now. I think something along those lines.
Yeah.
I mean, look. All I can hear at the moment is people yelling out about J.S. Shiger. You know, that man won, is obviously especially appropriate at this time of year. The only man, one of the last person, I think, to win, apart from Connor McDavid, the last man to win a con in a losing effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jaguar. And also, just for my benefit, because I always like to bring this up, but Ken Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Ken Holland in the 84 Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah. And Tom Barrasso, if you want another, Hall of Famer that's in front office and so forth.
Well, man, I love finding the front office ones. I mean, look, if we want to find a front office, Curtis McElhaney, the Leafs goaltending coach. The Leafs goaltending coach. That's what he is now. That's all he is. Let's get into the news, shall we? Because there's a lot to get through in this episode.
Yeah.
We're going to start with the awards. So John Cooper wins Jack Adams in what kind of felt a little bit like we owe you a Jack Adams, and because you haven't won the cup this year, we feel a bit better about giving you the Jack Adams, which means that award is always ridiculous. It's always best goaltending.
Well, yeah, I mean, what we've talked about in the past, there's 2 ways to win the Jack Adams. There's either the kind of Lifetime Achievement Award, which is basically what John Cooper is getting it for now. It's like you probably should have won at some point in the last decade.
We owe you one.
It's about time. Or what, effectively is the 2 runner-up, coaches is, we expected you to be bad. You were actually good. A large part of that is to do with getting consistent goaltending, maybe a goaltender that stood on his head for the entire season. But basically the team overperformed what we expected. You were supposed to be shit and you weren't shit. And that was, Lindy Ruff in Buffalo and Dan Muse in Pittsburgh.
I mean, and also, but we're not expected to be shit, but like John Cooper also, because we'll get on it now. The Vezina goes to Andrei Vasilevsky. So, it's almost like the coach's award is linked to a good goaltender.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how often the goalie for the team that basically those two are like perfectly linked up in terms of the Vezina and
my question, so there's a simple metric for this. How many Jack Adams awards does Paul Maurice have? Because Paul Maurice has never had goaltending.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of guys that probably theoretically deserve it, but that they're it's a hard thing because really what you're really talking about is like a team that wins, and you can be a good coach in a team that doesn't win.
John Cooper even said straight up when they gave him the award, we didn't think this was ever going to happen.
Yeah,
and that's fair. Like he won those cups and couldn't win a Jack Adams.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, obviously I'm never going to win the Jack Adams because if I win the cup a couple of times and dominate the league.
It doesn't do it. Yeah.
And I don't get a Jack Adams. Well, what chance is there this year? And the answer was plenty. Now that moves into the Vezina. And the Vesna, Andrei Vasilevsky, my favorite part of this was the NHL has decided very much in the last few years to the way they present these awards now is to go very candid camera, prank show style punch, where they come up with a really funny way of sneaking the trophy in. Like John Cooper was opening a wing of a hospital in Tampa. Andrei Vasilevsky was in the gym working out, and they did a sting operation with the local police to say they found a suspicious package in his car. And then the police all came out, and there was a big bag in his car, and they pulled the bag out and then opened it. We believe this belongs to you.
Like a joke that is only funny if you're white.
Yeah, literally only funny. I think especially in Florida.
Yeah.
But and even then he's a foreign national, so
yeah. I mean, look, could easily be getting deported.
I'm you know, again,
although they're okay with Russians, apparently.
The Vesna this year was like it's fair that Vasilevsky wins it. He was really good. We talked about this year was a year where goaltending stats were quite poor overall in terms of there was not really, you didn't have those blowaway years of, the last few seasons where you've had these goaltending performances that are up in the really high save percentages. You don't see a lot of that at the moment. Into a low early nines into a 9-1 is good.
Yeah. We're not seeing a lot of like 930s or anything around. That's for sure.
No. But like Vasilevsky winning the Vesna, that's absolutely fine. Let's get to the one that I'm more angry about, shall we? Nikita Kucherov wins the Hart. I am absolutely fine with Nikita Kucherov winning the Hart, but the absolute cowards that did not give Macklin Celebrini a vote because, and there were lots of people polled who said, if the Sharks make the final, he gets my playoffs. He gets my first place vote. The Sharks go from absolute bottom feeder to 4 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And he comes fourth. Good for him. But like 5 first place votes. Most people had him he had 103 fourth place votes. Cowards, a lot of you.
It's almost everyone's ballot, but not. Yeah, look, it's ridiculous that most NHL awards you just cannot win if you're not a playoff team. That's just the reality of the situation. Like if you miss the playoffs by a point, for some reason you're not good enough to win an award, and if you scrape in by a point, you can be top of the voting. That's all it's required.
If the Sharks had scraped the playoffs, like 4 points more, or not even if they get 4 points more, if Anaheim don't. Right, if Anaheim don't get those points at the end of the season and the Sharks hang on, the Kings don't get those points at the end of the Kings, not the Ducks. The Kings don't get those couple of points at the end of the season for a pointless foray into the playoffs. If that doesn't happen, we end up with probably Macklin Celebrini top couple, if not winning the damn thing for dragging the Sharks to the playoffs. Right? It's stupid. Anyway, it's really interesting because Cooch was left off 2 ballots. McKinnon was left off 4 ballots, which I think is absurd. But David was on every single ballot. But Kucherov wins by 10 points, which is 1 first place ballot.
Yeah.
So whoever gave the 1 rogue first place ballot to Nick Suzuki.
that's what did it. Yeah. It's wild. It's interesting. I think look, so many of these things are so totally like really totally up to someone's opinion on teams, and we do often see that people who cover those particular teams tend to put those players higher. That's just a reality of it.
Someone gave Logan Thompson a 5th place vote.
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll probably find that it's someone who covers
the Washington beat writer.
Yeah,
the one that surprised me, by the way. Was Quinn Hughes, who got 2 5th place votes.
Interesting.
That was it. That's all he got.
Yeah, I kind of would have thought maybe a little bit more, but I don't know. There's again, the ridiculousness of basing an individual award on team performance, like the overall like outcome of the team is silly in general. But like I think at this point, like McDavid has kind of just got the legacy vote. Like he's going to be on everyone's ballot every year unless he misses like 40 games with injury. I think
Even
that's
then, I
just
suspect someone will work it out.
yeah, like probably Kucherov, McDavid, and McKinnon will be on like everyone's ballot, almost 99% of ballots or whatever for the next 5 years. Like that's just kind of even when they don't deserve it anymore.
I'm going to add Macklin onto that one. I think Macklin's going to be one of those.
Well, it'll get there, but not yet. Like I think this is the start. This is the start of him, showing up on all of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like Crosby's at the end of that thing where like he's going to end up being in the voting, by this point in time, and arguably like he wasn't really the reason for Pittsburgh's success, throughout the entire year. So I think that's very fair that he ended up out of the top 10. But there's just names that just people who are voting on these things recognize and are already in the back of their mind of like, regardless of whether or not they watch 0 games of that player playing this year, they're going to end up on their ballot somewhere. And that's kind of just the issue of how these things are voted on.
So, I mean, it's a bit like when you talk about like, the Norris, for example, like, so it's like, who wins the Norris and how does that voting happen? To give you an idea, Zach Werenski obviously wins the Norris this year.
Yeah.
But Zach Werenski was 7th in voting, right? Winning the Norris behind David Pasternak, which is an interesting, I think that's an interesting little thing that like
it is tough. I wonder how often a defenseman has actually won the Hart. It can't be that often.
No, it can't be that often. It seems to be an offensive award. But like, you've got Pasternak and Suzuki both got more votes than Werenski. Werenski only just beat out Cole Caulfield. Rasmus Dahlin and Vasilevsky rounded out the top 10. I mean, Vasilevsky wins the Vezina, but comes 10th. And 10th, by the way,
apparently there have been 12 total hard trophies won by defensemen, and only 8 of the like players, because Bobby Orr and Eddie Shaw won it several times.
But I was going to say, like, it's got to be like Bobby Orr.
Yeah, it's the names that you would expect. It's Bobby Orr and Chris Pronger did it once, like that. It's that kind of thing.
Pronger would be the most recent.
1999, and Dominic Hasek was the only goaltender, I think. So
yeah, well, to be fair, that year, Hasek, like seriously, like that's absolutely fair. And there are
it's almost tough for someone who isn't a center to win this award. Honestly,
I was going to say it is very much the center's award. And again, we've talked before. That might be an off-season topic of again discussing what the award should be. I think that's a really good think tanking thought exercise for the off season, because I do genuinely think that we've lost track of what a lot of the awards. Again, every year you get that argument: most valuable player to their team, most valuable player in the league. How do you define what value is? Which just feels like a circular argument made by people who want to justify poor decisions. And McDavid won the Ted Lindsay, which the players vote for, and I think in a lot of cases the players write Connor McDavid at the start of the year and just wait to see.
There's a little bit of that. Yeah, there is definitely, I think, less flexibility.
Macklin did better in that one.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely less flexibility year to year with the 10 Lindsay. I find like it's usually like everyone decides like this guy is the guy for the next 10 years, and he has to have a bad, someone else has to do something incredible
it's a little bit like, and it's not a real trophy or award, but it's one of the funny ones that I always like thinking of is the most popular driver in like NASCAR. That used to be an award they gave out every year. The most popular driver was an award given out to somebody in NASCAR. And it got to the point where Bill Elliott won it so many years in a row that Bill Elliott did it so many years in a row that he ended up saying, "Take my name off the vote. I don't want to be voted."
I don't want to.
And then Dale Earnhardt Jr. won it for basically his entire career. Didn't have to do anything; would just win it. I think that like the Ted Lindsay Award is going to be McDavid's until everyone decides it's time to move that on.
Yeah.
Speaking of, and I did notice the comment in the chat. Yes, that is a Nice Dogs mug, and you know that's a Nice Dogs mug. And far more importantly, because I'm glad you're here, because Dylan Larkin, let's talk about Detroit. That's great timing. Thank you, Tim, for the comment. So Dylan Larkin requests a trade out of Detroit, and he's given Detroit a list of teams. It is a broad and wide-ranging list of teams. He has a lot of ideas and concepts as to what he could do in this league if he went to somewhere that's an upstart, that's a go-getter, that's hang on a minute, let me just okay, it's Vegas, it's Florida, and it's Minnesota. Okay, so and as we'll talk about a little bit later in this podcast, I'd love to see how Vegas makes that happen. Because
look, I mean, realistically too, like I'm not sure that any of those teams are in a position to make a reasonable offer for it. Firstly, like it's probably a better it's probably a better season to do it than most because teams actually have some cap space.
Cap's gone
that's really the only thing that makes it even actually technically possible for those teams to really make a trade for him. But at the same time, like he's also picked the teams with the least like prospect cupboards and obviously with wanting to go to a contender, that's kind of how it has to go. But it basically guarantees that you're not going to get a good return.
My genuine question, if I was talking to Larkin, as his representative, my first conversation with him is on those three teams. Where are you playing?
Yeah, where do you think you
where do you think you fit on Vegas? Where do you fit? So you're going to leave Detroit to become what you think the second line center on Vegas? That's what
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, like he's probably not. He's not playing over Eichel.
He's not playing over Jack Eichel. And so, okay, you're going to Minnesota.
I mean, Minnesota, I think, is arguably maybe the best fit because they are the weakest at center.
Everyone feels that's like where he probably really wants to go because he wants to go. And this is this weird American thing they've got going at the moment where everyone wants to play with the Hughes brothers. Which is
there's probably this element of like. I wonder if that was a discussion in at the Olympics or whatever. But the thing is it's like this is the team I want to go to, and here's two others that I know you can't trade me to, so that you have to make this deal.
Genuinely, I think Florida's off the table because I think if Florida decides that they're going to take a swing at someone, I think we all know who they're going to take the swing at this year, and it's not Dylan Larkin. If they're going to take a swing for anyone, they're bringing Brady to Florida.
Yeah,
like seriously, if Florida decide they wanted to make a swing and bring in a big player, they're going out. Matthew is telling them to go and get Brady.
Yeah, and it's also a tough like cap situation for them to wrangle to. Like
there's no.
They've got no goalie on the books right now. With Bobrovsky's gone to UFA, they've got a lot of work to do there.
And this is the thing: there's a lot of work to do there, and you've got decisions to make in terms of: does Bobrovsky come back for nothing? Does he say, "I'll take a no value contract really to come back and play another year"? Does Bobrovsky go and test the market and make money? What does Sergei Bobrovsky want to do? They've got bigger fish to fry than like adding a depth center. And so I kind of feel like Florida's not really an option. As I said, I think Florida would go Brady Tkachuk over Dylan Larkin. I think that Vegas, and we'll talk about them said in a bit, but their cap situation is not great.
No.
And they've got a lot of work to do because like Dorofeyev needs a contract. Also you've got they've got $4 million in cap space. He's an RFA and needs a contract. They've got to sort out what they're doing in net. They've got to work out a bunch of other things before they start trying to get contracts off the books. So, and they've got nothing to trade. They've got nothing to trade. So I don't know what they would send back. I feel like the other problem is, though, what's Minnesota sending back? Because they gave like a chunk of stuff to Vancouver. Like what are you getting back in a return for Dylan Larkin? So if I'm Detroit and it's an unpopular thing, in some circles, but I have heard a lot of people, including people that normally are players' rights people, who have come out and said, in this case, if I'm Detroit, my answer is broaden your search, broaden your teams, or you're coming back and you're sitting.
Well, I imagine that probably Detroit is already talking to other teams. Like the reality of this is you probably go out and talk to a few teams that you think you can actually get a reasonable package from, and then approach Larkin and say, like, this team wants you, this is a situation that you could be good in or whatever, let them sell you on it, and then, will you waive for this team? So I don't think that, like him saying these are teams that I will agree to right now is not the same as like I will never agree to any other team that I think he's in a bad spot, being the captain of that team and going, I want out.
I think Steve Eiserman as well needs this to go well, right? Because
he needs it at least enough to be incredibly embarrassing.
His reputation has been staked on, this idea of the Eiser plan and building this team up, and it's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. For Larkin to turn around now and go, "No, I'm out.
Yeah,
I don't want to do this. I'm out." Steve Eiserman, look, and if any general manager is going to play hardball, it's Steve Eiserman. Who you feel like will turn around to him and go, guess again. If the feeling with why Larkin wants out, in terms of general conversation, is that he's just fed up with the timeline. That he wants to win. He wants to win. He feels like he should win. There's a lot of these players I think we're going to see. We were talking about it before. I think there's a lot of conversations off the back of this Team USA and what happened at the Olympics. And these players are like, we want to go and win, and we're going to sort of pull ourselves around, and we're going to take ourselves other places. So I feel like this is all about winning, but rather than look more broadly at teams that are possibly on a cusp, and could send something back to get him. Like, I feel like Anaheim's been looking for a solution to get out from. There's a couple of players they're trying to get out from under that I think teams would love, and I think would actually fit quite nicely with what's happening right now. So I think like Anaheim for me would be a team that I would look at if I was him and go, this is quite a strong possibility here. They're like Mason McTavish, I think Detroit would love Mason McTavish. I think there's a couple of players that they would go, yep, we can definitely do something there. So I would look at an Anaheim or one of those teams as the team that's going to make that move. But is he convinced that will work, or is he just set on the idea of these guys are the top of the top and I only want these guys? Because as you said, he's the captain and he's come out and said, I'm leaving. I want to go. There's no walking that back. Yeah. Like, you cannot walk back into that locker room at the start of the season and say, "Well, I'm the captain."
Go, hey guys, yeah.
We're all living.
I've decided we're great.
It's done, right? It's absolutely done. So I think the move becomes, if you're Steve Eiserman, I think the move becomes, you're going to. I think they've actually got someone early on. They were like, Detroit's got no leverage here. No, Detroit's got a hell of a lot of leverage. It's called a contract. And he can. What's he going to do? Not get paid?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, they don't have to make the trade.
They don't have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to probably be a really toxic situation if they don't. But I think that they've got some wiggle room. Like, I think that especially coming into the draft and everything, like there's going to be a bunch of teams for them to talk to. I'm sure that they will find something that at least looks vaguely respectable. He is 29, arguably first line center on a handful of teams. He might not be on every team that he could potentially be traded to, but it would be an incredible second line center for a lot of teams if that's the reality of the situation that he ends up in. It's just really a matter of how much they can actually save face and get back in this situation with very little leverage.
The one that makes a lot of sense for me, if he doesn't want to move that far, the one that makes a lot of sense for me is Boston.
Yeah, well, obviously, they're probably the one that is really desperate for, a center.
They need a center.
I don't know that they are, in a particularly winning position if
David Pasternak would drive everybody in the team to the airport himself.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously that would be good for them. Obviously, they did end up in they did end up in a playoff position. Is that enough? Like, I guess this is the thing. Is like, is it just enough for Larkin to go to a team that made the playoffs this year? In which case, that opens up like a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of teams in that mix who would be interested in his services. They're probably not going to be able to give up the same level of assets that some of these other teams can. Is that okay?
But this is the big question: is he open to more? Or is he just going, these three teams I think are great, and I want to go here because my friends play there?
Well, I think that's where it starts. But if the offer comes back from that, well, like, yeah, we'll give you a 3rd round pick for him or whatever, then I'm sure there's no way that Yzerman can do that and keep his job.
I mean, if he wants to play with the different Hughes, I mean, New Jersey exists. But anyway, like, if it's just a Hughes or it's just a Kachuk, I mean, there's options.
Yeah.
But speaking of trades, Darnell Nurse has asked to be traded from the Oilers. I have no doubt that the Oilers also asked him to be traded from them. He's provided a list of 3 to 5 teams that he would accept the trade to and waive a no trade. Unlike Dylan Larkin, the Darnell Nurse list hasn't made its way out, which kind of makes you feel a little bit like there's less interest there. I'm concerned. I'm personally concerned about this because Jeff Marek has been doing everything in his power to say, you know what makes a lot of sense? Darnell Nurse to the Sharks for Colin Graff. And no, it doesn't. Not at that cap hit, not for that length. And I know we aren't cap stretched at the moment, but I don't want the Sharks to take on stupid contracts they can't move. And my big thing with the Nurse contract is you can't move it. Once you've got it, it's yours.
Yeah.
So
it's tough. Like, I think the thing is with Nurse is like there's still 4 more years at 9.25.
Yep.
It's easy to say in hindsight that this was a terrible contract to sign, given the.
We said it at the time.
But it was also easy to say at the time when it was signed.
We said it at the time. It was terrible.
It was obviously a terrible contract to sign at the time. He had this insane shooting percentage the year coming into signing this contract, and they went, "Yeah, this guy's going to score fucking 25 goals every year," and everyone went, "No, the fuck, he's not. What are you talking about?" And they're like,
"It's Homer Simpson investing in pumpkins." It's Homer Simpson investing in pumpkins. Market's up in October, but I feel like December's when it's really going to peak.
That's right. That's when I'm going to sell. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. If he was earning 6, I think that's fine. I don't think anyone's talking about it. I think probably,
I don't think they're moving it.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Like, he is a serviceable NHL defenseman in a mid role. But at 9.25, it is way too rich, especially for the Oilers teams of the past who were desperate for any kind of depth. And like, it's just made it way worse. Like, we've seen this many times before with players that are signed to a contract that is just well above what it realistically should be, that are just lambasted because they can't meet the expectations of that contract.
I think it's really interesting too, because I think there's a very similar conversation around Darnell Nurse and around Morgan Riley. And I find it fascinating that both fan bases will tell you that the other team is going to have to eat something to trade that contract, but that they shouldn't have to eat anything to trade their contract because their contract's not really that bad. Because you've got Leaf fans saying that, the Leafs shouldn't retain anything on Morgan Riley. He's still great, but Darnell Nurse, that the Oilers need to retain something on Darnell Nurse. And Edmonton fans are doing the opposite with Morgan Riley and going, Morgan Riley, the Leafs have to eat something there, but we don't have to eat anything on Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
We're going to have to eat something on both of these players, right? Yeah. Absolutely. This is not a case of you get assets, they get Nurse. This is a case of you're giving something back.
Yeah, I think the interesting factor in this is that usually teams don't have the space to eat 9 million of a contract. Like most teams usually don't. There's usually like one team who's barely meeting the floor that you're like, all right, we'll pay you to take this contract so that we can have this cap space or whatever. Like usually you would have to pay to get rid of that kind of contract. But coming into this next season with a terrible free agency, a lot of teams have space. So I think this is actually way more movable than it would be usually. But that said, I think there's a lot more teams who would take Darnell Nurse at 6 than there would be at 9 or
Well,
7
it's
and a
like
half.
look, I'm not a fan of it at all. But if he was 6 and not 9,
Yeah,
and the Sharks went, we'll investigate that.
yeah,
I'm not hating it. We don't have any defense.
yeah.
So I wouldn't hate it at 6. I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't hate it at 6.
Mm.
Whereas at 9 for 4 more years and a no move, there is
Yeah.
not a chance on this or any
No.
other planet I want the Sharks to eat that contract. There
No.
is no way I want the Sharks. And the Sharks have 40 million in cap space coming up. And I don't want them to touch it by taking Darnell Nurse because
Yeah.
they're about to offer a bunch of contracts to a bunch of players that are going to legitimately earn a lot of money. So I want them to use the space wisely, whereas there's a lot of people out there who I think believe that it's the job of teams like a San Jose to eat these contracts because, well, you've got the cap space where, they've got the cap space at the moment because they've got all the entry-level contracts still. So I genuinely don't know. Like at the moment, if you believe Canadian hockey media, the Sharks are taking Darnell Nurse and Morgan Riley as their first pair defense. And then they're going to eat the contract of about 4 other players, and they're just going to eat all these contracts and take all the contracts on because they've got the cap space to do it. None of these players have good deals in terms of movability.
Mm.
And you don't want to be taking on the money's one thing. The money without movability is the problem. Like if you could take Darnell Nurse on, even if you could take him on at 9 for a year because you've got the money,
Yeah.
but you could move that contract at the end of 12 months, different story.
Yeah.
But you can't move it. Once you've got it, it's yours.
Yeah.
So I would say most teams are probably going to steer clear of this, and I think this one might drag a little bit.
Yeah, way more teams would be willing to eat 2 years of this.
Yeah.
But for who knows what your team looks like in 3 years, and if you're going to be regretting that money on your books, like that's a long-term commitment. You don't take that unless you're going to be bad, and in which case Nurse probably doesn't want to go there.
Yeah, like he's got the ability to direct where he wants to go here. He's not going to go to a team that he doesn't think is going to win.
Yeah.
And a team that does feel like they're going to win isn't going to want to give it up. But that's a bit like, to quickly go back to the Dylan Larkin situation. Dylan Larkin wants to win, but teams are going to have to give stuff up. He goes to going to all these teams that can't really give anything up for him. And anything they do give up is going to make them weaker. So, it's really tricky with the Larkin situation because he hasn't named teams with a deep prospect pool and lots of picks.
Yeah.
Again, it's about finding the balance. It's a bit like we've talked about it because we did the whole recap of the Gretzky trade a couple of years ago. When Gretzky went to the Kings and they were talking about all the things they were going to give Edmonton for Gretzky, and Gretzky turned around and went, I need somebody to play with.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this on my own. You need to hang on to somebody, and I need some players. Don't trade the franchise for me because I need somebody to play with. So it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, I think that probably the return in both of these cases will probably be less than fans of those teams will be wanting.
And in the case of Edmonton, it's a good thing that it's a nice and tight and well-run organization that is not in any way, shape, or form in any form of trouble or difficulty or mess.
Yeah, I mean, look, both teams have just been making great moves lately. Yeah.
There were things that I expected to be talking about with the Edmonton coaching search. When we last left the Edmonton coaching search, we last left it on they were possibly going to hire Craig Berube, and wasn't that going to be hilarious? Since then, it got funnier. Yeah. Because Mike Babcock,
a name that you thought we'd heard the last of several times.
A man who, if you remember in his last coaching stop, did not coach a game.
Yeah.
Mike Babcock is apparently the man that Edmonton have decided is going to be the future of this franchise and the head coach, except when he left that last position of his own volition off the back of the NHL going, we're about to investigate you. Remember, he did nothing wrong, but he left for the good of the team and he just didn't feel like it. And he's retired. He decided that he was going to go for Edmonton's job. Edmonton were like, yep, cool, we're going to hire you. And the NHLPA went, hello, you might want to talk to us. And Edmonton went, oh, we'll talk to the PA and see if there's any problem. We don't think there'll be a problem, but we'll talk to the PA. The PA put a statement out less than 24 hours later saying, we have advised the NHL that if they are going ahead with this hiring, the investigation that was never conducted needs to take place. And it later came out because people were like, oh, it's just when he looked through people's phones and breached their privacy and those sorts of things. The conversation was that the thing that they have to investigate was not mentioned at the time. It is not the going through phones. There was another incident, and that incident is the one that the NHL will be investigating. Nobody has said what that incident was. Now, we've heard a bunch of different things. The league has said if the Oilers decided to not go through with the hiring, there's no need for the investigation. So they wouldn't investigate. Day later, the NHL announces that they are undergoing the investigation of Mike Babcock, which means that the Oilers went, nope, he's our guy. We're going to put him through the investigation. Now, Chris Johnston talking about it said that he reckons that he spoke to people in Columbus who said that they feel like he'll be okay. Elliot Friedman went, hold up. If it was only the phones, he's probably okay. People I've spoken to are not sure that that's actually going to be the case. Remember, this is a Gary Bettman ruling. It's not, there's no other panel. It's Gary Bettman.
Yeah.
He is the one investigating.
Whatever Gary wants to do.
Now, we'll start with Babcock before we get to the alternatives. Why?
Yeah, I don't get it. I do not get why that he is an option for anything. Are you that out of fucking ideas?
I'm baffled.
Yeah.
The idea of Bruce Cassidy's our guy. Bruce Cassidy's our guy. We're going to wait for Bruce Cassidy. We're going to wait for Bruce Cassidy. We're going to wait for Bruce Cassidy. Craig Berube's our guy. You know, Craig Berube's always been our guy. You know how much we love Craig Berube. He's our guy. We love Craig Berube. No, Mike Babcock. Mike Babcock's our guy. He's always been our guy. We'll put him in an investigation. That's how confident we are. I can only assume that Vegas has made it absolutely plain to the league and to Edmonton that there is absolutely no chance on this or any other planet that they are going to allow Bruce Cassidy to be spoken to. I can only assume that's what's happening.
This is the thing. Like, it's going to be interesting in the next week to see whether or not anything changes. They no longer have the excuse like, oh, we're too busy with Cup and all this kind of stuff. I would be surprised if they suddenly start letting him talk to people. I reckon they're going to sit on it for even longer.
I don't think they're going to let him. I think they're going to sit. So this could be it could be really interesting because there's a bit of a whisper at the moment that Toronto's talking to their coaching search people at the moment. I mean, the other day they spoke to Kowalski, which was an absolute left name conversation. But part of the thinking is that Toronto are naming all these people at the moment because they're holding out hope that they can talk to Bruce Cassidy. But given the bad blood at the moment between Vegas and Toronto, you can't see that that's going to happen anytime soon. I reckon Vegas are going to sit on him for 12 months. I reckon they'll sit 12 months until Vegas needs to talk to someone.
It's a good chance.
I reckon the only reason that I think they might let teams talk to Bruce Cassidy is if, as we expect, Tortorella doesn't come back. And if Tortorella's not back and they don't hire the coach of the Silver Knights, which is the rumor that is going around, is that that's the coach they want. If they don't promote from within and decide to go elsewhere and have to talk to somebody else, then they might have to open up the Cassidy sweepstakes a little bit because they need to make some goodwill back. But at the moment, I don't think Vegas is going to let anyone talk to him for 12 months. which means that the coaching search is really down, and this is the conversation, and Friedman and Chris Johnson have both confirmed it, that the last interviews they did were Mike Babcock, Jim Hiller, and Daryl Sutter.
I'm so fucking tired of this retread thing every fucking time. Like,
can you imagine Daryl Sutter or Jim Hiller?
Oh my god! Like the top three, like we just talked about, like the top three coaches this season for the Jack Adams. Two of them are
brand new
coaches who are they're coaches who are coaches on like head coaches for the first time on the team that they're like John Cooper came out of Tampa's AHL system. Dan Muse was an assistant coach in a bunch of teams. This is his first head coaching gig. Almost wins the Jack Adams in his first year, and they're like, "We need to get fucking Mike Babcock back."
It's like we didn't mention it. We didn't mention it before, but in the meantime, the Kings hired Peter Laviolette, and I was talking to someone. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said that my only thing with the Kings hiring Peter Laviolette is, I'm stunned that Peter Laviolette hadn't been the Kings coach. I was sure at some point. It feels like a guy who's coached the Kings before.
Yeah.
Right? So, but Laviolette, I think, is trying to get the career Grand Slam of everybody.
Yeah.
But like the amount of retreads and some of these teams, and what really would annoy me if I was an Oilers fan is this is the team with probably supposed to be the best two players in the league playing on this roster. And you think Mike Babcock is the best you can do, and all of the media came out during the last week and a half and said there's no way Connor McDavid didn't sign off on this.
Yeah,
Connor McDavid 100% signed off on this and said, yep, he was comfortable with that. And as Mike Commodore, and again we know, piece of shit human, and a lot of his takes are a bit off, but his Mike Babcock takes tend to be fairly accurate given his thing. He goes, yeah, but Mike's really good with the top couple of players. It's everybody else on the roster he sucks with. So the superstars love Mike because they're the superstars, and Mike treats the superstars like royalty. But everybody else on the roster, he treats like crap. And so, this is a coach who obviously you had the Mana situation in Toronto where, got everyone to name who they thought the laziest player was, and it's all secret. And then he told everyone who it was when Mana was a rookie, so it was, he named Kadri. It was a big kerfuffle in the locker room. This is a coach who obviously looked at his players' phones in Columbus. This is a player who, this is a coach who, when he had a player going for the consecutive games, benched him in his last ever game. $15.99.
Yeah.
Like, this is somebody who has lots of form. And there's no way you should let Babcock back into this league. But the idea that, like, Connor McDavid said to the organization, go and get Mike Babcock.
Yeah.
What is he thinking?
I just don't get it. Everyone in this league is fucking morons. I just don't understand why the same, like, 40 guys have to recycle the same 32 jobs until they're all fucking dead.
The Oilers will only hire a name. They will only hire a name coach or somebody who has coached Connor McDavid at one point during his career.
Yeah.
That is it. They are the only two things you need. I heard some Oilers fans talking about it the other day, and their comment was, we all know what we think's happening here. We think what's happening here is they're looking for a patsy coach they can put in briefly so they can fire that coach mid-year and Paul Coffey can get it.
Yeah.
Because remember, Paul Coffey's back. He's a special advisor and coach and put himself back on the bench.
Yeah, but they don't want to have that responsibility straight away.
So it's either going to be they're going to hire somebody else, fire them, and put Paul Coffey in.
They want a Marty situation where he comes in with like no pressure. Yeah,
or the search doesn't work, and they hire Paul Coffey as Paul's going to bail us out of this mess.
Yeah. That like it's like, oh well, Paul's doing it for a solid for us here.
I wonder if they've leaked Babcock and Berube as a way to make
this seem better.
A good option.
Yeah,
because it might be the case. I think a Jim Hiller Oilers would be one of the most embarrassing teams you've ever seen on the ice. Like, they'd be terrible. Like, this is the man who got fired by the Kings. The Kings thought he was terrible. But the Kings have very low standards. Like, and the Kings thought Jim Hiller was too bad for them. And don't even start me on Daryl Sutter. Like, don't even start me on that. Like, oh wow, what's
not
next?
inspiring, that's for sure.
Oh, but remember they've got a Hall of Fame level general manager.
Yeah,
Scotty Bowman is an inspired general manager. Like, it can't. None of this can be worth it.
Someone take a swing on someone who hasn't, been around 6 times already, please.
If the Leafs did hire, like if the Leafs did go out and did decide to hire Pavs, that'd be fantastic. Like I would love if the Leafs went out and hired Joe Pavelski. Like, as just we're going to look forward, we're going to look ahead, we're going to try something a bit different here because we want to do something different. And Pavelski is known, first of all, his leadership skills are notorious. Like, he's generally a great leader. And he would instantly command respect of a locker room. He would instantly command respect of the players. And he's played in a lot of teams that have played very good hockey, and both defensively in terms of his Sharks time, but also he played on the Dallas Stars. Like, he's played really good offensive and defensive hockey, and especially for things like power play and those sorts of things, he's outstanding. Like, so Pavelski's not a dumb shout. And I like that a lot more for Toronto than I like the idea of Edmonton just dragging up every coach that's not currently hired.
Yeah.
Which seems to be the plan.
Bring back Mike Keenan.
Look, as I said, again, it's my favorite quote from any documentary, from that Rangers documentary. You know what? This team didn't want Mike Keenan, but this team deserved Mike Keenan. No, trades. There is one trade, but it's a fascinating trade because it's literally just 2 players that each organization was like, I don't want him.
Yeah, I don't want him anymore. It's a wild one. Like, it kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. So it's the Penguins traded Emil Pieniemi, just to be difficult, to the Florida Panthers for Oliver Okulia. Let's say that's correct. I think that basically both of them have just ended up on the wrong side of their organizations. Pieniemi got sent down from the AHL to the ECHL to the Wheeling Nailers during the last season, and then refused to report. So I think that burned a lot of bridges there. Like, he was struggling a little bit. They sent him down. And the WBS, like the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, were good this season as an AHL team. They lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Marlies in like Game 6 or whatever. So they were a pretty good team. So like there was competition there, obviously, and clearly he wasn't a fan of that. Didn't want to play in the ECHL. He is basically I think he was picked in like the 3rd round. I think like 90 something overall or whatever in a draft a few years ago. 21-year-old player. Oliver is like a few years older than that. He is 26. Has been playing in Sweden and played for Team Slovakia in the Olympics, but had some disparaging comments about the Kachuk brothers following the Olympics. They're scumbags, both of them. They're not even good hockey players. They just do this shit. That's exactly their style. Which, given that he is, belonged to the Florida Panthers system, maybe that would rub some people the wrong way.
Oh, that might be it. But like, that should probably make him very popular with, a bunch of other teams.
Look, to be honest, I don't know if either of these players play a game in the NHL next year. There's probably a reasonable chance that they don't, especially with him being 26. I don't know that he's coming back to North America. This may be the end of his career. They may not even sign that contract. This may just be a getting out from a contract situation. Pieniemi has 1 more year on this contract. I imagine that he plays in the AHL for the Florida Panthers next year. I can't imagine that he gets many games in the NHL. We'll see what happens with the 2 of them. But still, an interesting couple of personalities.
Speaking of fun, let's get to it.
Yeah.
Your 2026 Stanley Cup champions are the Carolina Hurricanes, who win in 6 games against Vegas, preventing the darkest timeline by being incredibly Carolina for the last 3 games of the series. So
yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the preview. Like, Carolina is a team that picks up pace, that gets, that learns the matchup, that gets better, that, continues to improve game over game. And, we weren't worried after the first. I think we recorded after game 1 of the series.
We were talking about. So what we were talking about with this was that we thought that Vegas has the ability to score in bunches, which they did in the first couple of games. They scored in like threes. Again, always in threes.
Yeah.
And it was like, they can't keep this up forever. And at some point that's going to go away. And it went away. And once that went away, you kind of felt like the Hurricanes were going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like stereotypical Hurricanes hockey, especially, game 6 today, starts out and really just kind of like led to this point of Carolina just getting to their game of like possessing the puck.
They were amazing today.
Yeah, have just like totally outworking in every zone, stifling any kind of chances. Just, basically, I think that Vegas was down 1-0 and didn't have a shot on goal for 15 minutes of the second period.
They had in the first 2 periods they had 2 shots. Yeah. By the time we got to the last 5, when they had that big flurry at the end to try to suddenly get goals, they'd only recorded 5 shots on target.
Yeah.
Right. So they had shots, but they had 5 that were anywhere near the net. So
they had a couple of off the post. Like, there was an Eichel shot that on a 2-on-0 that probably should have gone in. He hit a crossbar. That was with
5.5 to go. And
I mean, that wasn't probably going to win the game for them necessarily, but there was a weird bouncing puck that went like off both bars and bounced off the back of the net. A bunch of weird shit.
There were a couple of brilliant saves too.
Yeah, Bussy was incredible. Coming in game 4 after Freddie Anderson, struggled a little bit early on in the series, and he was pretty lights out, honestly, in those last few games. I love the fact that this cup-winning game today was the first playoff shutout of his career.
It was incredible, and Freddie Anderson was there, and he was really, they were great, and they talked about it afterwards. And apart from Freddie was banged up to start with coming into the series. Then obviously we talked last episode, passing of Claude Lemieux, who was also Freddie Anderson's agent, and Freddie was both physically and emotionally a bit all over the place. And
he said that he tweaked something in his leg in game 3, and then aggravated it, and then it was just difficult for him to really compete.
Yeah, and it was kind of like when they pulled him, when they made the change they made in that game 3, because if you remember, that game 3 was, Vegas runs out to a lead, they pull Freddie, they put Brandon Bussy in, they come back, they get it to overtime, they take it to double overtime before Vegas scored the winner. But from that moment on, it kind of just felt like Vegas didn't. At no point after that game 3 did it feel like Vegas were going to be really in control of anything. It felt like Carolina had worked them out. And for those who aren't looking on the screen, my tag under my name right now is 3.67 goals against average, with an 8.864 save percentage in 6 games. That's Carter Hart. Yeah. Now, one of the things, apart from the obvious, and I've been very plain about the obvious, John Tortorella, one of the things he did very badly in this series was just blindly ride with Carter Hart. Aiden Hill is sitting on the bench, and like Aiden Hill, and we'll come to it in a minute a bit more about Aiden Hill, because if there's anyone who's a candidate for trying to get themselves moved this year, it's Aiden Hill. But Aiden Hill is sitting on the bench. Carter Hart in the first 5 games, 4 goals, right? Today was unusual. He was only in for 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the first goalie in NHL history to let in 4 goals, in 5 consecutive games in the final,
It's
which is
literally
incredible.
It's literally statistically the worst performance in a Stanley Cup final by a goaltender. Now, obviously, I take great joy in that. I don't take great joy in the fact he was playing to start with. But be that as it may, if you want to talk pure hockey, and all the people are like, no, don't judge Hart for everything else. Judge him on his hockey. Okay, that was a horrible goaltending performance.
Yeah.
And John Tortorella had the option to go to Aiden Hill. And rather than go Aiden Hill, decided that he was going to keep Carter Hart in as a bit of a FU to everybody. I think it was an FU because it's John Tortorella. He had press conferences where he talked about that. You had Carter Hart before this game get out there and give a press conference where he said that the no means no chance were just noise, which really doesn't play very well, and it shouldn't have played very well because, first of all, there was a chance for him to make a genuine statement and say, I understand all of this. I look to learn and grow. I understand why those chances are there, and all I can do is try to do deeds and blah, blah. He did none of that. He was like, oh, it's just background noise, while Mitch Marner sat next to him, nodding his head like a little fucking yapping dog, right? I think this is one of the more embarrassing episodes for the NHL, but I think it's a very embarrassing episode for Vegas, and it cost them a Stanley Cup because if they probably had better goaltending, they stick in these games that are really tight longer and they possibly do win a cup. But the other thing that happened was Vegas had this batch scoring and suddenly that shooting percentage disappeared. Mitch Marner in the last 3 games of the Stanley Cup final, after everyone talking about Marner being on this heater, Marner in the last 3 games of the Stanley Cup final, 0 goals, 1 assist, -5. Right? They all stopped. All of them. So I think that Vegas kind of undid themselves completely. And Tortorella, who gets all this credit for managing an absolute blinder all the way through the playoffs, I thought Tortorella was thoroughly outmatched by Brind'Amour. And had no answers. He had nothing to go to apart from.
He just had bravado, really. Like it was really just showing up for the cameras.
Bravado, that was it. And it was kind of this thing where all of their scoring disappeared. The Tortorella, and it's interesting because Tortorella talked about it, and Tortorella said before the game as well, he was talking about the idea of would he come back, and he even admitted, I don't know if what I do lasts for an 82-game season. Right. I think Tortorella, by the way, is trying to set up a new job. I think Tortorella is trying to basically set himself up to be the pinch hitter. He doesn't want to coach a season anymore. He wants to come in and just coach playoffs. And I think he's actually trying to set that up as a career. I'm not being silly about that.
It's such a weird one because I don't know that you're I don't think it's a good idea to have a coach that comes in relatively unfamiliar with the team relatively unfamiliar with them, doesn't have a relationship, comes in right at the end and tries to just stir things up as a strategy to try and win. It just doesn't seem good to me.
I agree. It seems ridiculous. And especially when one of the reasons why Carolina worked so well in these playoffs was this team knows each other so well. They know what Brind'Amour wants so well. There were a couple of people talking about it post game, and the comments were when the system kept not quite working in the playoffs and they just kept falling, they didn't change the system. And they didn't go, we're going to just blow it all up and start again. They went and found more players that fit the system and went, we're just going to find the right fits. We're not going to go out there and just throw players at it. We're going to get the right fit. And it fell over again, so they went and got more of the right fit. And, that was people like bringing Taylor Hall in, which was a great call.
Nikolai Ehlers, the kind of players that they added that just fit their system perfectly, that they didn't give up on their plan of trying to approach things in this manner of all right, well, this is how we want to play, we're not, it didn't work for us this one time. We're not going to totally, throw everything in the bin and try and get a bunch of guys who fight or do something different or whatever. We're not going to throw it in. We're just going to stick with the plan. We're going to, continue to trust that our process works. We're going to, we're going to improve around the edges. We're going to try and, improve the quality of shots, but we're going to continue our kind of game plan. And, the guys that they put in that position, like the Stankoven and Blake and Taylor Hall line was, the best line of the playoffs. Like it was incredible.
One of my favorite comments around the Conn Smythe was, "Can that line win the Conn Smythe?"
That whole line, yeah.
Just give the line.
Not to take anything from away from Jordan Staal, who absolutely deserved it. Like talk about a player who is built for the playoffs. Like Jordan Staal was an absolute beast, and probably a big reason why they shut down players like Eichel and Marner and so forth and Mark Stone towards the back half of that series. Like he is just the perfect kind of player who plays this 200-foot game in the playoffs and shuts down guys, but also scored a shitload of goals.
He called the record for consecutive goals in Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And today he would have had the record.
The crazy thing to me is like, if you want to talk about a team player, the Conn Smythe today is the first individual award of Jordan Staal's entire career. He's 37 years old. There's 17 years since he first won the Cup in 2009. But, he played his role. He didn't, it wasn't a big hero thing. He just, played that role, trusted the process, did exactly what he wanted to do. Meanwhile, the Stankoven line, just continues to just steamroll people. They had 67% of shots at 5-on-5, almost 64% of the high danger chances, 68% of the expected goals, 72% of the actual goals. They scored exactly 50% of the 5-on-5 goals for the Hurricanes in the entirety of the series.
And look at, like even said in net, Freddie Anderson came in, lights out. Anderson was a bit going in. He was injured, had all the other stuff going on. They swapped goalies. Not an issue. And like there was one of the comments after, which I thought was quite interesting, was on the commentary they were talking about it and going, this might actually be part of a future on the way forward, is that teams are going to need two goalies who can play, because you may end up horses for courses in the Stanley Cup final and not just run the one goalie all the way through. But you might need to chop and change from time to time.
We are just seeing a little bit more of that, of teams talking about, literally having like 3 NHL caliber goalies on their roster for the reality. I think with a little bit of more wiggle room in their cap space and so forth. I think the other important thing to talk about with, Carolina, we talked about that process and the way that they've kind of built the team methodically. This really feels like this is kind of the culmination of the analytics kind of movement, and it all kind of coming together. Reece Jessup, who is an amateur scout for the Hurricanes, posted today this little bit of a snippet that he wrote in 2012, which is fantastic, talking about like how he believes that basically from like the talent of guys available online, just in the kind of like movement of people who would talk about NHL online who aren't coming from like being ex-NHL players and so forth, that there is enough like talent and knowledge and so forth. I'll read it out for you. I've said this before and I'm quite confident that it's still true. I really think that there is enough appropriate talent and brainpower floating around in the public that if we were to get together and form a front office, I think we could run a legitimately above average to good NHL franchise. I say this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm confident in the quality of work that's done on the internet, and I'm confident in the abilities of the people that do it. And second of all, I don't think that there's a really mystical, innate understanding of the game of hockey that hockey guys are blessed with. There's even more applicable to the leading voices of the online analytics community. They're smart people. Eric Tolsky, who is now the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, has a PhD from UC Berkeley and a BA in chemistry and physics from Harvard. Tyler Dello, also who is what's his official title in assistant general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. is so forth, so forth. There are many others in hockey Twitter that are really bright, well-educated people too. So it's not as if it's basement bloggers stereotype, if applicable or even appropriate. Given that these people have a track record of being able to think critically and solve problems, I don't believe for a second that a single one of these guys is incapable of seeing the same thing in a guy who has a high school diploma but is a hockey lifer can. Those three guys now, integral parts of the Carolina Hurricanes franchise who have built an absolute wagon of a team that have been to the Eastern Conference final, so many times over the last 5 years or so, that, have finally broken through and actually won, and look like a fucking scary team for the future. We were looking at
Tyler Dello had been obviously a sort of a name out there for a while.
Yeah.
The others a bit more. And that, like Jeff Fayette also pointed out today that Earl Schwartz, who was a blogger on the Leafs Reddit for years and years and years, is the NHLC, is now the compliance assistant for the Carolina Hurricanes. So like a blogger,
there's a lot of smart, minds in that room who aren't all, look, I think that it helps a lot that they have Ron Brindamore at the, the kind of top of that tree that gives them this like legitimacy that like NHL teams will be like, oh, well, you've got your hockey guy.
Talked about this, but Brindamore's talked about this before when people have gone, oh yeah, you're an anti-analytics, and Brindamore's like, no. Analytics is great. Analytics is the data that feeds me the information. My job as a head coach is to filter the information into meaningful hockey talk and meaningful hockey things. And you need the combination. You can't just have a front office that is purely analytics driven. But by the same token, you can't have the hockey uncles just running it and going, oh, Field, it's obvious that that guy's great, or he's got grit. You need both. You need an analytics department that can find and identify where the gaps in the talent lie. And then you need the hockey people in that to funnel that and go, how will I make this work within a system? And so it's the job of the analytics guys to find the guys they think fit the system, give it to the hockey guys, so to speak, and they do the analysis as well. And you combine that data, and that data combined gives you more of a rounded picture of a team. That's what Carolina has done very well. Is that Brindamore can take that information, and rather than tell them all to go shove it, and I don't want that information, it's useless, and all of those things.
I know what a good player looks like.
Brindamore's like, give me the data. What does the data mean? How do we make this team better? Anything that makes your team better and makes you win is fantastic. And I don't understand why so many people are resistant to it when you could go out there and be better. And Carolina, everyone talks about it's a copycat league. Well, first of all, as someone pointed out, Brandon Bussey cost them nothing. So no team is ever spending money on a goalie again. But secondly, what you might hope that comes out of this is that a bit more of an understanding of why analytics is useful. And it's a tool to be used effectively. It's not a complete system, but it's also not something that you just discard because you're like, well, he's a nerd, what would he know? Combine the two. Be clever. If you're clever enough and you combine this, it works. And Carolina, as Gary Bettman went to great pains to say today, I think it was in the last 8 years, no team has won more games than the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
But
I mean, look,
consistent.
Yeah, incredible. Engine of a team that they've built there. Coming into we're talking about they've basically got almost nothing to do in the off season because all of their guys are locked up. All of their important guys are locked up long term for really, really good contracts.
I looked at their page before, and the Carolina Hurricanes have 11 million in cap space. Freddie Anderson's the only thing that's coming really off the books, and I suspect Freddie Anderson will retire. And they've already got the two goalies in play. They've already got them. So they don't need to do that. They've got 11 million. They probably need one defenseman.
Yeah.
So
and they may just re-sign Nikishin and that's it, but they might add someone.
They've got 11 million to add a defenseman. They don't need to add much to this. This is it.
The new contracts for Jackson Blake and Logan Stankoven are starting this coming season, and they are 6 and 5 million respectively, which is wild, absolutely wild. That
Stankoven one in particular, that is robbery.
Gross.
Eric Tulsky is a bad man. So on the other side of the equation, they could add Nurse. Thank you very much for that, Joe. You're right, Joe.
They could add Nurse, yeah.
They could definitely add Darnell Nurse.
I don't think they will.
The analytics guys right now are crying. On the other side of the equation, what next for Vegas? And I asked this question, first of all, off the back of who's coaching them, because I don't think it's Tortorella. I don't think Tortorella wants, as I said before, I don't think Tortorella wants to do regular season anymore. I don't think he does. I don't think he has an 82-game season in him. We saw what happened when he tried the last time with Philadelphia. Like, that was bad. So, again, I think Andy wants to pinch hit. So I can't see him coaching another season, which means they've got to get a coach. The conversation is that the coach of the Silver Knights has always been what they wanted eventually, but they might have to do that this time, which doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in a lot of people. You've also then got to make decisions on the roster. Now, Aiden Hill, if look, we know that Marc-Andre Fleury famously had the Alan Walsh photo of going through him. If any man has earned the right to post a photo of a sword through him,
God. What do you have to do? What do you have to do to not be able to get into one fucking game after Carter Hart puts up that performance?
So here's the thing. The big problem is Aiden Hill's contract is 6.25 until 2030-31. And it's you got 10-team no trade next year, 8-team, 6-team.
Moving a starting goalie is so hard too, because there are so few spots in the league that can actually add this kind of goalie and actually have enough games for the play. There are so few landing spots for goalies.
Now you feel like
you almost never get any decent return.
You feel like they're probably going to sign Akira Schmidt because he's not an RFA. You feel like they'll re-sign Akira Schmidt and they'll probably go with Schmidt and Carter Hart. And if they do that, they're probably in a lot of trouble. But the big problem for them, I mean, the first thing is the Pietrangelo contract. I suspect that's $8 million buried, but they have to re-sign Pavel Dorofeyev. Right, he's the big RFA this offseason. Riley Smith's going to walk. We know that. Brandon Saad's going to walk. Colton Sissons is probably going to walk.
Yeah, I mean, those guys couldn't get into a game in this series, so they're not coming back.
Defensively, they need at least one more. Rasmus Anderson is probably the one that's going to go out of there. I wonder if, by the way, I feel like Rasmus Anderson burnt a lot of money. I feel like he burnt a lot of money in this playoff final. Because as Rasmus Anderson was going to be the big sort of one of the big defensemen hitting the market.
Yeah.
I don't know who's paying for. He was horrible. He was really bad. I don't think that. I see there's lots of requests in the chat. Hill to Edmonton or Hill and a first for Larkin. I don't think either of those is happening. But because I just don't think that. First of all, I don't think that they're going to take. The problem is the Aiden Hill contract. I think Aiden Hill would have been a better option at the point that he sucked that Carter Hart was, but I also don't think Aiden Hill is worth that contract.
No,
and that's the problem.
I think that's
he's
tough
overpaid.
too. Yeah, clearly, they're in this situation because they weren't happy with him as they started going forward, regardless.
And so the problem with the Dorofeyev contract is that Dorofeyev this year, 37 goals, 64 points overall. He was their best goal scorer by 9 goals. He was by far and away. Now, the caveat to that is 20 of those were power play. So that's an awkward contract because, yes, he scored a lot of goals, but 20 of them on the power play.
That's not that abnormal for a lot of guys across the league. If you look at teams with strong power plays, that is not that uncommon for a lot of those things to be scored on, in that situation if he's getting first line power play. What
I find really interesting as well is there's a lot of Vegas fans who are having buyer's remorse over Thomas Hertl, which is hilarious because I could have told them that was going to happen. So Hertl this year, to give you an idea, had 24 goals, but 13 of those were power play goals. Thomas Hertl, he got 58 points in 82 games, but he's a minus 17.
Talk about someone who was relatively invisible in this series.
He was bad again. And look, I could have saved them a hassle. I could have told them this. But there was, like I said, I mentioned it last podcast. There was a couple of Sharks writers who were like, wouldn't it be nice to see Hertl get something? No. One, it's Vegas, and two, he's terrible. He has a ceiling, and Hertl has a ceiling. And when Vegas came in and offered a stuff for him, there's a reason we took it. Because Thomas Hertl has a ceiling. And if you're relying on Hurdle to get you places, and that 675 is really bad. Like it's not good. So like we've retained on that deal, which I think was dumb, but we had to retain, and there's a reason we had to retain. No one else was going to pay because that contract is not great, and he's got a 15-team list. I don't know who's going to take him, and I don't know where he's going to want to go. But I think that nothing you think about is, I think a lot of people think that Hurdle's younger than he is. He's 32.
Yeah.
Thomas Hurdle's 32, and he looked slow. He looked really slow. There's been a lot of Vegas fans who have been complaining about his conditioning and just said he just looked out of shape. And he did. He looked really out of shape. So I think there's a lot of question marks. They've got the Dorofeyev contract. What are they going to do with that? Goaltending. One, you've got to try to move Aiden Hill because he's going to want to go. You're going to want to get rid of him for the $6.25 million. If you're Vegas, and this is again, people want me to stick to hockey. So, okay, I'll stick to hockey. Can you tell me after that Stanley Cup performance that you were going to offer Carter Hart the farm? Like, he's got one more year at $2 million. Are you confident that Carter Hart can do that and get you to the finals again?
Yeah, that he's your guy going forward. I haven't seen anything from him really the entire season that made me like, yeah.
So it was talked about when we mentioned it last podcast. When Hart got better, it wasn't that he suddenly became a great goaltender. All it was they changed the defensive structure because one of the things he's really bad at is puck control. So what they did was they changed the defensive structure. So every time shots came in, the defense collapsed on him to prevent the rebound going anywhere. So all they did was a defensive change. It wasn't his goaltending got better. They changed the defense and dropped a bit deeper to collapse on the puck more to stop rebounds. You can't really get away with that over the course of the regular season for 82 games without wearing your defense out. Right? At some point, you need a goalie to make clean grabs. And I think that Vegas have more questions than they want to admit. And I think more questions that a lot of people in media want to admit. A lot of people they've sold this idea they're the evil empire who gets what they want because they're so good. Like Jack Eichel talked about it today and was like, "Oh, they're not an evil empire. We just know what we're doing and we're really good at it. And we're really, you win a lot. People think you're evil. No, you're evil." But I think part of the problem for them is that they've almost spent themselves into the corner. And I know someone always lets them out, but they've almost spent themselves into a corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one because, from coming into the league, they were burning assets immediately. Like, people were kind of expecting that they would, they've got to build a system. They've got to, they went, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to compete. We're going to be a playoff team immediately. And, look, they did a good job of that in terms of succeeding straight away, which is not something that people expected an expansion team to do. It's not traditionally something that an expansion team does. And it hasn't really been what Seattle has done. So it's interesting in that regard, but it was always going to come at a cost. They were selling their first round picks immediately. They were, there's basically no one that they've drafted still in their system. It is that bill is going to come to pay sooner rather than later. And they can stretch it out for a little while, but in the next few years, they're going to have a really hard rebuild on their hands because there's just absolutely nothing in the cupboard.
Like, Carlson's 33, Stone's 34, like they're aging. Like they are genuine, and Stone is 34, but he's a hard 34.
Yeah, I mean, and look, and for sure. I mean, like and talk about injury history, but like the fans of that team, having won a cup, I'm sure will be fine with that. But it's gonna be an interesting and a long kind of build back, and I wonder. I'm not sure that this ownership, this fan base is ready for the pain that is to come for Vegas as an organization.
I think that they believe they can short circuit it and never have to feel the pain, which is not how it works. It's not how
really
how it works. It catches you at some point.
I'd be impressed if they find a way, but it just if at some point in time you're going to run out of things to trade.
And at some point, people are going to stop offering you sweetheart deals.
Yeah.
So that's going to do us for this one. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We will hopefully be back next week with a bit of a draft special. We are aiming to be back next week with a bit of a draft special.
Yeah, I'm aiming for Thursday. I still got to work out the exact timing of that, but the draft is coming up, I think, Saturday for us. So yeah, pretty soon. There's not too long a wait. I know it's going to be tough for you guys in the next few days as you've got no more hockey to watch, but at least the draft is next week.
Yeah, so we've got so it's June 26th, 27th. So yes, we've got it. It's coming up next weekend, and we hope to have a draft special coming up, and we will have hopefully some really good information coming with that one. We'll keep you powder dry on that one. And then obviously when the draft happens, at the moment I will probably be live streaming it. I don't know yet at this point in time. I feel like I will probably be live streaming the first round, mainly because I want to see what the Sharks do at number 2. But
yeah, you've got some reason to do so.
I got skin in the game. So that'll do us for this episode. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks for those commenting in the chat.
Please, like and share it around. I mean, again, it doesn't need to be, we get far more people watching on delay than we ever do live. So, share it around, show everyone, let everyone know it's there, and we will talk to you all later.
Yeah.